When I came to, the first thing I did was pinch my neck, just to make sure I was still alive. My eyes tried to adjust to the blackness around me, but it was pointless. This was the kind of darkness that felt like it wanted to rip your face off. Sharp pain shot from my shoulders down through my back and into my legs. Every muscle felt like it might snap, like I was made of glass. No one was meant to stand this long. But in that closet, standing was the only option. There was no space to lie down. It all began when my mom, Danielle, got back from her trip to New Orleans. She walked through the door still wearing a tacky bridesmaid-to-be necklace. I actually laughed. For real, my aunt, April, was 45. What kind of grown woman throws herself a full-on bachelorette bash? And why didn't Mom bother to change? She flew all the way back dressed like that? I said something like, "Rough weekend?" and went back to my Rocket League match. She walked over and stood between me and the screen. She looked wiped out, tired but also jittery. Her eyes were red, not from being hungover, more like from crying. I paused the game and got up to hug her, but when I touched her, she flinched. She shoved me back and asked if I could grab some paper towels from the hall closet. I headed to the kitchen and she followed close behind. I turned back to ask how her trip went, but she didn't say a word. The second I stepped into the closet, the door slammed shut. I heard the lock click from the outside. At first, I figured this was some strange parenting tactic, something she'd picked up from chatting with other moms during the trip. Aunt April was always sending her parenting articles about tough love and being a parent, not a buddy. But minutes passed, then more. She didn't open the door. I started calling to her. Nothing. I yelled. I screamed. I broke down sobbing. Still nothing. I kicked the door. I made threats. I begged. I cried harder. But all she did was wander through the house, moving stuff around, talking on the phone, mumbling nonsense. The first day was pure hell. Hunger, paranoia, thirst. It all mashed together in my head. I thought my brain might burst. Eventually, when my panic dulled, I started listening closer to her phone calls. The first one I could make out clearly was to a pool supply store. Just so we're clear, we didn't even have a pool. Our townhouse barely had enough yard for a grill. I heard her ask the employee if they had a list of household chemicals that could kill someone. She pulled out the plastic bin from under the sink and told them she had a newborn at home and needed to know what to lock up. From how she kept saying, "I know this is a pool store, I know. I could tell the person was confused. "But you must know about chemicals, right?" she pleaded. "Please, I'm a new mom. Just help me." I listened to her rummage through containers. She'd name one. "What about bleach?" Then say, "Okay, thank you. Then I heard the sound of liquids being poured into something. That's when my body gave out. My stomach twisted. I wet myself without warning, and the warm itchiness made me gag. I ripped off my jeans just before I shit in the corner. I turned and vomited bile in the opposite one. My throat swelled trying to hold it all in, but I lost that battle too. Finally, my body just shut down. I slumped against the shelves smeared in filth and shut my eyes. Sleep was quick but violent. In every dream, I was falling downstairs. Then I jolt awake, gasping, in my pitch-black hell that smelled like death. Mom kept making calls. She dialed a trauma center in Ohio. "Hello? Yeah, can someone die from getting hit with a hammer? What about a baseball bat? A remote? A textbook?" She called a butcher. "Which organs do you stab to kill someone fastest?" She rang up a construction company. "If someone fell 10 feet, would they die? What about 5? Could that paralyze someone?" This went on for hours, days. And me? I stood in my little prison while the piss and vomit and shit built up around me. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe without pain. My arms and legs felt like shattered wood. Mom didn't need to kill me. I was already dying. At some point, I don't know what day, I curled my fingers together and prayed. I didn't ask to be saved. I just wanted to know why. Why was she doing this? The last time we spoke had been totally normal. She was at her hotel, and I could hear Aunt April and her friends laughing, definitely drunk. Mom told me they were going to visit a psychic for one last New Orleans thrill before she caught an early flight. She asked if I'd used the pizza money wisely. It was the first time she'd ever trusted me to stay home alone. I was 13. I just wanted to make her proud. I guess I failed. I must have done something terrible, something worth dying for. Then, as I drifted in and out of sleep, I heard her pass by the closet. She was lugging something heavy. She grunted, struggling to move it. I heard the doorknob rattle. Something dropped. Metal clinks echoed around the closet. A sliver of light danced under the door. This was my chance. Ignoring the agony that tore through my limbs, I bent down, reached through the gap, and grabbed whatever I could. The moment Mom saw my hand, she let out a scream that didn't sound human. It was guttural, like an animal cornered before the slaughter. I snatched what I could before her foot came crashing down, just missing my fingers. I pulled the objects close and examined them. A toothbrush, some toothpaste, a small comb, and a razor blade. I kept the blade. I ran it across my fingertips, not to hurt myself, but to feel something. And I did. I felt hope. I began sawing at the wood near the lock. Blood poured from my fingers, but the pain was drowned by adrenaline. Pure, animal adrenaline. The kind that gives moms the strength to lift cars off their kids. Only this time, I was lifting the car my own mother had dropped on me. Eventually, I carved out a hole. Sunlight poured in. It was so beautiful it made me dizzy. The pain, the nausea, the filth, they scattered like roaches. I reached through and twisted the lock. Just as I did, I heard her scream from the kitchen. Then came the footsteps. By the time her hand reached mine, the door was unlocked. I turned the knob with everything I had left and shoved. She slammed against the door, trying to block me, her feet scraping against the floor. I gave it one last push, and she flew backward, hitting the wall. "No, no, no," she whimpered. "Please." I collapsed in the hallway, finally able to lie down. The floor felt like heaven. All I wanted was for it to end, for her to see me, to love me again. I looked up at her, hoping she'd realize it was me, her son. But she wouldn't even look. She turned and sprinted into the kitchen. I somehow pulled myself upright and stumbled into the bathroom. The mirror showed a version of me I didn't recognize. Hollow cheeks, bulging eyes, a Halloween decoration of a boy. My joints were bent in strange angles. I tried to talk, but my spit was thick as tar. "Ma!" I croaked. I limped into the kitchen. The second she saw me, she recoiled. She backed up toward the stove, grabbing a knife and pointing it at me. "Get back in there," she hissed. I took another step. My vision flickered like a dying light bulb. Everything was getting blurry. Every few seconds, it was like my brain shut down. "Ma!" I mumbled again. The kitchen looked foreign. All the knives were wrapped in duct tape. Empty bottles of cleaner were piled in a corner. The table was covered in sticky notes. Each had a name and number. Each one was checked off. Then I saw the walls. They were covered in writing, one sentence scribbled over and over. "The person you love most will hurt you in unforgivable ways." I stumbled forward. Maybe if I touched her, she'd remember. Maybe she'd snap out of it. "Please," I said. "Is me. Stay back," she screamed. I was a few feet from her. She crossed her arms and turned away. I reached out. She screamed louder, her voice piercing my skull. She backed herself up onto the counter, her feet kicking. With each desperate move, she shifted closer to the stove. "Don't be true, please God," she sobbed. "Don't be true." I touched her shoulder. Her skin was soft, warmer than I expected. I didn't push her. I swear I didn't. I just wanted her to know I was there. I cried the second I felt her, but it didn't last. Her legs thrashed, knocking the burner dials. She was fully on top of the stove. Then I heard it. Tis 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 fuhush. She didn't even notice. She was lost in tears. "Move!" I tried. I reached for her arm. She kicked me hard. I crashed into the island behind me. I got back up, rushed toward the stove. Too late. Flames had already caught. She shrieked. The fire spread fast. She ran on fire. And then everything faded, like I was hit by a train of sleep. Collapsed. Next thing I knew, I was on my back, surrounded by blinding light. The sounds she made were horrifying, inhuman. I watched her, ablaze, stumbling like a puppet without strings. Her skin melted. Her mouth opened to scream, but only sinew and teeth moved. Nothing could save her. She staggered around the kitchen, then dropped in the hall. The fire spread to the walls. I watched it all without feeling. Like a movie you show up to halfway. You see it, but none of it makes sense. And then it was dark again. When I woke up, I got to my feet and crawled to the sink. I drank like an animal. The water was everything. It revived me. My mind cleared. My mouth stopped sticking. But then, the smell hit me. Smoke, fire, burned flesh. I turned and saw what looked like 2 charred logs in the hallway. Slowly it came back. Mom, the stove, the flames. But just as fast, I let it slip away. My brain had stopped caring. You lose the ability to feel when you've lived without light. Feeling needs rest, needs air, and I'd had neither. I smelled a campfire. I tasted ash. Mom's body wasn't even human anymore, just a shape. I didn't want more pain. I wanted the truth. I went to the kitchen table and read the sticky notes. She had called every kind of business imaginable. Next to each number, she wrote a type of death: starvation, poison, stabbing, drowning. But one type of business showed up the most: psychics. Mom had called over 20 of them. I looked at the walls again. The person you love most will hurt you in unforgivable ways. Over and over, I thought back to that last phone call. The party, the psychics, the noise of Bourbon Street. We're going to a psychic for some last-minute New Orleans fun. I looked away from the writing. I couldn't handle it anymore. Outside, the wind hit the windows. A storm was coming. Mom never opened windows. She said if she paid for heating and a sea, she wasn't about to settle for nature. I used to agree, but now the smell of her death made me sick. I got up, opened the window, and let the cold rush in. Felt like freedom. I sat down at the table, closed my eyes, let the dark surround me, and for the first time in days, I didn't fight it.